Hello, Alabama fans, and welcome to the BamaOnLine BOL Recruiting Show. I'm Tim Watts, site publisher. With me is Andrew Bone, our fashion extraordinaire. He's the guy that when we got to send someone to Canes to represent the BOL show, it is Andrew. Andrew, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. It's another beautiful day in
It's beautiful.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Alabaster's beautiful. So beautiful. Andrew's with us. We'll have Joseph Hastings on in a minute, our young fledgling. He does a great job covering recruiting. Of course, Andrew Bones, the recruiting editor, three of us, tag team recruiting, everything that's going on. I mean, there's so much happening right now. I mean, last year kind of felt, Andrew, like not just that they're not behind. We were behind. We were trying to catch up, figure out where they were going, who they were going to recruit. I mean, it was like starting a brand new job in some ways. And I'm enjoying, what's happening now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, last year was so different just because there were so many different, new people that were in the building. You had guys that you didn't know what areas they were going to recruit. You didn't know, the type of players they were going to go after, and now you have a little bit better of an idea. As far as the areas they're recruiting, the guys they're going to see, but also the guys who've already been offered. Last year, this time of the year, only people we knew about were the guys in California that the staff had offered
Yeah.
while they were at Washington. And who were they going to go after? Were they going to be different caliber players than the previous staff? And what we came to find out was they were going to be very similar to the players that Nick Saban and his staff recruited.
And some of the names we heard right out of the bat, I mean, right out of the gate, right off the bat, I'm mixing everything up, was Jackson Lloyd, Dijon Lee, Chuck McDonald, Abdul Sanders. I think the only one that was Sharma, Josiah Sharma was the other one that we heard Bama was in good shape with. That obviously turned into a heavy NIL with Texas and Oregon slinging heavy punches. But yeah, really good start where they're at. We're going to get into that. We want to welcome all you guys. Our guy Kenneth, good morning. Appreciate y'all, Roman, all y'all being here. Jordan, I think this is my wife's fake account trying to get me to watch that show again. But we appreciate all you guys being here. Roll Tide to every one of you for jumping online. We know it's a little bit early in the morning. Hope we don't get you in trouble with your bosses. Andrew, I mean, they've been busy beavers, right? We're going to get into all of this as the show goes on. And again, you can find our content at BamaOnline.com. You can follow us on Twitter, all the little things that we do. And but we'll be touching on all this on the week. And of course, on the Bama Online Roundtable, where it seems like some of you guys are and some of you gals are too. But obviously, a plan in place, getting after it, and not really scared to burn to burn the gas mileage.
Not at all. I mean, last week, I remember one day they were in Georgia, then they went to Texas, and they were back in Georgia, then they were back in Texas. So it's pretty clear some of the areas that they're really going to focus on in this recruiting cycle, and they've hit Alabama hard. We've seen several new offers in the state of Alabama, in addition to the guys that they had previously been recruiting over the last year. I think they're up to double-digit offers in state already, which included four over the course of the last 2.5 weeks, mainly on the defensive front. So Freddie Roach has been getting after it, seeing some new guys that he really likes. But yeah, I mean, we've seen them in California yesterday, in Vegas. They're going to be in Florida, this week, DMV area. They're all over the country, and this is the final week of the contact period before that dead period hits until March. So wrapping up these final visits, seeing their final guys that at least they want to check out before the springtime hits.
Yeah, I mean, you look at leaving Alabama to go to California, stop by Vegas, almost like you're a rich billionaire, see one of the best prospects in the nation in Brandon Arrington, then fly home, hit Florida. Of course, there's senior day in Mobile, so they'll be stopping by there, kind of mixing everything together. But they don't really hold back on the traveling. I mean, we've seen them up north, we've seen them in South Florida, we've seen them in Texas. And again, we're going to get into all this stuff, but man, it has been a busy track for them so far.
I think one thing that's been interesting, and we probably haven't seen it in the past when Nick Saban's gone out on the road. Now he's gone with whether it was a coordinator and maybe one, maybe two assistant coaches, but we're seeing 5 or 6 coaches going together. We're seeing Coach DeBoer, Courtney Morgan, Mo Linquist, Chris Kapilovich, a lot of
Shep.
coaches, Coach Shep, all those guys, Brian Ellis, all pretty
Yeah.
much boarded the same flight yesterday, flew out to California. Now they hit some of the same schools, but they also spread out and hit some other different schools. And one thing that's also different this year are in-home visits, right now. So assistant coaches are able to go in home with these kids. So a lot of conversations that happen during the spring, that happen during the summer, especially on the NIL front, those are already taking place right now. And we're already starting to see kids schedule official visits. I don't think I've ever seen kids schedule official visits as early as January before, and we've already
It's
started to see
crazy.
some schedule official visits, including Lamar Brown, one of the top offensive linemen in the country, set up a visit to Alabama yesterday for May.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you got the schedule so messed up. Now, I will say, obviously, one of the big benefits to Alabama is last year we saw that spring foot traffic, and it was amazing. I don't know how many prospects. It was definitely triple figures, and it was coaches. They had to meet, and there's a lot of meeting for the first time, and they were going through meeting their own team, which was insane. They had to meet their own players, guys they had never seen practice other than film and all that stuff. Did a great job, and now that's been moved back to now. They're getting and jumping in with a lot of people. Um, jumping in with a lot of people that are hitting home quicker, and those spring visits will be escalated a little bit on what they're going to do. So obviously, been all over the place. Got a big junior day. I know we're getting a lot of questions about commitments and all that stuff. I know everybody's anxious, but I feel like a high percentage of early commitments, and I felt like this with Nick Saban, Andrew, ended up with decommitments. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like a lot of kids committed. So, not saying that's the case, but I think it's best to make sure you've got the right guy rather than the fastest guy.
Yeah, and with the official visits being pushed up in the spring and the summer, you're not seeing as many commitments. Now, there's some schools out there that are racking up early commitments and getting those guys on board. I wouldn't worry too much about that. We saw in the final Nick Saban years, the last 2 years, Alabama went into the spring, went into March, April, May with maybe 2 or 3 commitments. So this isn't out of the ordinary to only have one commitment right now. Alabama's out there, they're evaluating kids, they're trying to develop new relationships. There's a lot of relationships that they've developed over the course of the last year in this 2026 class. There's a lot of kids that they haven't seen yet that they've been going out visiting, meeting with, and those recruiting boards are going to move up and down over the course of the next couple months.
Let's thank BOL member.
My man.
Yes, this is my guy. It's Andrew's guy because he said I don't have any game. But again, he was banned from the arena. He couldn't see the triple double I threw down. But we appreciate you. One of the BamaOnLine roundtable active posters. Again, we have a good time for you guys that haven't joined, but appreciate the donation. And I'll admit I have no game just for you, just for that. Yeah, I mean the junior day, yeah, it's a big deal. Getting these guys on there a chance to come in. It's going to be a small group, but you kind of want to, Nick Saban would do this. He would do the small group because you got to factor in, I mean, they're probably going to the basketball game Saturday, right? So you can't have 200 kids coming in. So a smaller group, then there'll be bigger groups, and then there'll be individual groups because some won't make it because they were going to other junior days. They have basketball obligations. They could have, they could have anything going on, family events going on.
And I've talked to some recruits who've even said, I'm going to be able to get to Alabama one time between now and summer official visits. I want to get there for spring practice to watch the team practice rather than go for just a junior day. So we're having some kids that are saying that, but we posted an early list on BOL of all the guys that are coming in for this weekend. I think we currently have 28 on there right now as far as guys that have confirmed that they're going to be in Tuscaloosa on Saturday for this junior day. I don't even know if Alabama likes calling in a junior day because it's such a small number of guys that are going to be in town, but they're excited and it's a really good overall group.
Before we get into that group, let's bring in Joseph Hastings. You're always curious to see how well dressed he is today. Okay, he came in normal. He came in normal.
Can you all
Nope.
see the Alabama logo on the shirt?
Not really. We can see that your background is always different. So I think you're actually breaking into people's houses and using the free Wi-Fi. That's our theory for Joseph. If Joseph broke into somebody's house, he would clean the house and he would cook them dinner so when they came home.
You're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I got a new setup here. I can't show you all the desk, but the desk is nice. A new chair as well. Did a little upgrading.
That's what we like about you. You're humble. You didn't walk straight in the show and start bragging about all your riches and everything you bought. So anyway, Joseph Hastings.
You didn't give me a chance, but I was about to.
Joseph, welcome to the show. You know Andrew Bone, of course, everybody's hero, our favorite recruiting editor. Joseph, we're going into that junior day. We're giving some general thoughts. We're going to get into the a few of the guys that are coming, but I mean, this junior day is bigger, and we were talking about how it had a different feel than last year because we really didn't know what was going on. There was really a junior. I mean, everything happened so quick and so fast with that coaching change.
Yeah, there was a lot of scrambling, not only with the Alabama coaching staff's end, but on our end as well, trying to figure out who's actually targets for this new Tide staff, which of the Saban recruits would carry over to Kalen DeBoer and company and be prioritized by them. So we were still trying to figure everything out. Now we're getting a little bit more of an idea of what the staff wants in this 2026 class based off what we saw in 2025 and also on the offer list that we've seen this month. I mean, they've been very active, hit the road 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago today, really started prioritizing, the defensive line position group and, extending offers, to a lot of 2026 prospects and also in 2027, 2028, those underclassmen. So, very fascinated to see how this junior day goes. We mentioned the smaller quantity, but high quality with the guys expected in town.
We got a quick question that we don't know the answer to. Is there any chance for any new additions to Junior Day before Saturday? There's definitely always a chance, but again, it was a select group of invitations. Now, some of the guys on the list, and we've reported a few of those names, won't be able to make it this week. So we'll be adjusting and doing, everything like that. But yeah, there'll be guys that they might be room made for, change of plans. There's some on the bubble. I mean, you got to remember it's Tuesday, and for a 17-year-old, man, that's 6 months away. But yeah, I think it's possible. Appreciate the question and joining in on the show. Let's talk a little bit about what we expect. Some of the guys we expect. Andrew, give me a guy that you're kind of excited for. It can be an in-state guy for whatever reason. Pick out a guy that you're excited that's coming for and tell us why.
I think it's, you got to start in state. Anthony Jones, number one player in the state of Alabama from Mobile. I mean, this is a guy that Alabama has recruited for over a year now. Coach DeBoer, the staff, they were at St. Paul's in Mobile, one of the very first stops they made. I think, within about a week or two after he was hired as the Alabama coach. And as we saw last year, whether it was junior day, spring practices, a lot of those in-state kids were visiting and meeting the staff for the very first time in that 25 class. Now this 26 class that we're in, a lot of these guys know this staff. They know what they're about. They've developed relationships. They've met with the coaches several different times. So now they're getting, coming back for junior days. They're going to come back for spring practices. I don't think there's necessarily going to be much of an excuse this year for Alabama in-state wise. I think they're going to have to really have some big wins in-state this year. They've got a great in-state group coming in this weekend. But Anthony Jones, number one player in the state right now, if they could go in and get him, I think that would certainly change a lot of in-state perception that people might have. I don't think we have that negative in-state perception because the way Alabama was able to recruit last year, signing the number 2 class, but a lot of people that, maybe the casual Alabama fan or even the diehard Alabama fan, they want Alabama to do a lot better in state this year. And I think it starts at the top.
I don't know if I'm in the minority or the majority, but I don't care where they come from, honestly. I just want the best football players. Maybe that's an NFL mindset where you just don't care where they draft from. I think that's that way. I mean, you'd love to have the best player in state, but if the better player's from another state than the player in Alabama, you take the guy out of state. And again, like you said, we expect that to change. Joseph Hastings, give us a guy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Xavier Crowell. I feel like that's kind of low-hanging fruit, but recently reclassified from the 2027 class to the 2026 class out of Jackson High School, highly productive running back. I know a lot of fans were kind of like freaking out because when Xavier reclassified, his on-3 rankings went from like number 10 overall, number 1 running back to, in the hundreds. Now, those rankings will be readjusted. Have to do a proper, thorough evaluation of him for this 2026 class and how he compares to the other 2026 prospects. But obviously, he's one of the bigger names in Alabama, even when he was in the 2027 class. He visited Alabama multiple times last year for five visits, and he visited throughout the year, which was pretty interesting. Visited for the junior day, visited for A Day in the summer, and for a couple of game days. So, he's seen some different aspects of Alabama. Didn't necessarily need to see, them on a junior day, but wanted to get out there. Bama's one of his top options. Obviously, Auburn's pushing really hard for him as well, and he's got plenty of suitors across the country. But yeah, EJ Crowell is the one I'm looking at this weekend.
All these players coming in from across the country, and these guys are focusing on guys that are 2-hour drive away. We're going to go back to your out-of-state choices. I'll tell you, for me, in-state, I think it's Brandon Arrington. I mean, for you guys in-state, we'll get to your out-of-state guys later, but for me, it's Brandon Arrington. I mean, it's a elite speed guy, faster than Damani, I believe. Obviously, a lot of effort's going to be put into him. Courtney Morgan saw him a few weeks ago. Kalen DeBoer and staff went and saw him this week. Project on either side of the football. I think the cornerback's where he's kind of leaning now, but these guys changed their mind. He's going to be a very, very hot commodity. And again, he's a California kid. I mean, so you're going to be battling not only, and that's the thing about California, recruiting California. You got to be a fool not to recruit California because there's so much talent. It's like Texas. You got to recruit it because the in-state schools can't keep them all, not the big name schools. Andrew, you picked an in-state guy. Give us an out-of-state guy you're excited. We'll do one in, one out. Give us an out-of-state guy.
I think Jordan Edmonds at a Sprayberry High School, Marietta. We've talked about Jordan for a while now. We talked about him back in the fall. Alabama, really focusing on the defensive back class this year. They've already got one big commitment in Zion Gibson from Gaston City. Jordan Edmonds is a guy who has Alabama at the top of his list. They've already seen him a couple different times this month. He's going to be in this weekend. If there's one guy that could potentially make a decision before the spring, I think that's a guy that we're keeping a very close eye on right now. But he's getting heavily recruited by a lot of schools. Georgia's all over him, but he has Alabama right there at the top, and keeping a pretty close eye on him this weekend.
And I don't disagree with you, AK. I know what you mean about staying close to home. But I'll be honest, last year, a lot of people talked about Mississippi, can't trust a, Mississippi kid, they decommit and all that. And they did lose Caleb Cunningham, but they lost a lot more that decommitted from the state of Alabama. So, I think that with NIL agents, with everything going on, the tampering, transfer portal, I think you're just going on your instincts and what fits what you're looking for best. Joseph Hastings, give us an out-of-state guy.
Yeah, you kind of hinted at it there, Tim. I'm going to go with Tristan Keys, 5-star wide receiver out of Mississippi.
I did not hint at that. I did not say go to Mississippi, but go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, that was going to be my choice. A few weeks ago, I wrote a story on Tristan, how he said he loves Alabama, the relationship that he has with Jamarcus Shepard. And that one story got a 3-page thread on it talking about not recruiting in the state of Mississippi. We saw what happened when Alabama recruited a 5-star at Mississippi last cycle. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, if you didn't recruit Caleb Cunningham and didn't recruit anybody in the state of Mississippi, you would have missed out on an AK Deer. You would have missed out on London Simmons. If you have that fear of recruiting in a state like that, I mean, you have to give it your shot, give it a shot, especially with somebody like Tristan who has expressed the desire to go out of the state of Mississippi. He said that Alabama is one of 3 schools standing out to him, Tennessee, Texas A&M being the other 2. Getting him on campus is huge because he wasn't able to visit last year. This is going to be his first time visiting with the new staff. So this is a really important visit for him and his recruitment and Alabama's pursuit. Seen him already multiple times at his school. So he's one that, we're going to be watching and see how this visit goes.
Yeah, and I think me and Andrew are on the same page with you as Mississippi. You don't recruit. I mean, AK Deer might be the number 1 running back in the country. I mean, he's certainly in that discussion. And we had no issues with AK, right? Wouldn't take visits, had the same offers that everybody else did. He's kind of built for what you're looking for when you go there. I think my in-state guy's got to be Emmanuel Ruffin. I mean, Bessemer City, 6'4", 6'5", almost 300-pound defensive lineman. Now he had an absurd offer day where it was like Freddie Roach went to the school and offered him. Bo Davis went to the school and offered him. Texas went to the school and offered him. Georgia felt so left out, they called the school and offered it because they weren't there that day. But I think everybody else was there that day. We saw his offer list go up a considerable amount. Big guy with a lot of potential. He's got that size, and he's in state. He's coming this week, and we really don't know a lot about him. But obviously, he's not far from home, Bessemer City. He's got a ton of big offers. Still think some guys are actually evaluating him. You know how the dominoes fall with the big name school offers, then everybody follows right away. Let's switch to yesterday. Kalen DeBoer and company were in California. Let's talk about some of the guys they saw. I mean, California's a city that's been a state's been very fruitful to them, landing some big time talent. I mean, you can't really sleep on Jackson Lloyd, who we started out talking about Jackson as much as anybody. And then by the end, we kind of had burned out and didn't talk about Jackson. But Jackson, Dijon, who looked fantastic, was made a 5-star by another company, made a big jump actually up to close to the top 10. Chuck McDonald, who had a great all-star game. Andrew, one of the guys I'm most interested in as being a basketball guy is Jet Washington. I mean, he's Kobe Bryant's nephew. And, man, his tape screams, I'm an athlete. And he's a football player, but it screams like this dude's athletic. This guy can run. He's got size. Obviously the connection. And Alabama went out there to see him a couple of times.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to kind of see which position he ends up playing in college because, I mean, he is over 6'3". He's 190 pounds. I mean, he is just an, overall tremendous athlete, plays on both sides of the football. I think Alabama's looking at him more as a safety right now, but you just never know. You got to kind of wait and see his development over time. But also a star basketball player, as you mentioned, Kobe Bryant's nephew is it's his mom. It was his mom's brother. So there's that connection. He was in Tuscaloosa for the Georgia game last season. There's a lot of interest. He says he's planning on coming back sometime in the spring. But they went by and saw him yesterday. During that trip to California, also made that pit stop in Vegas to see Jet Washington, and definitely an area that Alabama would like to tap into, and they were able to do that last year by getting Derek Meadows out of Bishop Gorman. So this would be another guy that they could potentially go after and try to sign in year 2.
Yeah, just a guy that's got that whole connection there. When you watch him, I mean, obviously Kobe was Kobe. Athletically, but when you watch him, I mean, you can see there's some things happening there in the gene pool that are pretty good. I mean, the way he runs. Joseph, I touched on this guy earlier, but you've talked to him before. Tell us a little bit about Brandon Arrington. What's his mindset? What he's thinking? I mean, obviously, at one point there is people predicting he'd be committed to Texas A&M by now, early in the process. Actually, before signing day. That's what's crazy. It's not even the end of signing day for 2025. We're completely full throttle on 2026. But Joseph, I digress. Tell us about Brandon Arrington, some of the thoughts and discussions you've had with him.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting when you see a noticeable change with the prospects recruitments as it pertains to one school when there hasn't been a visit. When looking at the conversations that we've had, I spoke with him in October. His previous visit to Alabama was in July for the cookout, and he didn't sound as high on Alabama as previous, and then spoke to him a couple weeks ago or a week ago after the national championship game, and he had nothing but high praise for the coaching staff, for his interest in Alabama, for their development. It just seemed like there was definitely a tonal switch there with him and his thoughts on the Crimson Tide. And it's easy to see why. Jamarcus Shepard offered him back in May 2023 when he was still a freshman. Going into his sophomore season, and that relationship, even though it was early on in this process, just continued throughout. Coach Shepard's continuing to stay in communication with him, but he's really been in touch with Maurice Linguist, defensive backs coach for Alabama. Eyeing the cornerback position at the next level. He's 6'3", 190 plus pounds, runs that 10-2 in the 100 meters, so he's got a ton of speed. And says that, playing that cornerback position at his size and with his speed will give him an advantage over other corners. So, he's really, that's the position that he's eyeing, but he has really high interest in Alabama. going to be visiting this weekend, which is a noticeable change because, when we spoke with him just over a week ago, he said that he didn't have that visit lined up, and he was eyeing the spring. So good to get him back on campus, and he's definitely somebody who's trending upward in terms of his interest level in Alabama.
Another school they visited was Mater Dei. They're really trying to bust through that bubble there and land somebody. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, Xavier Brown, Bryce Young, going back to Bryce Young, where they did a tremendous job. And then Xavier Brown, who's one of the most impressive freshmen in the country last year. You had Chuck McDonald, who's got that defensive back versatility. But, there's a ton of guys to talk about. But I think we're going to get mostly into Mark Bowman, because he's another, just like E.J. Kroll. These guys are reclass. I'm telling you, us growing up, reclassified mean you failed. Nobody went up. We just went back. You know what I mean? We just had guys driving to 8th grade in their Trans Am. But obviously, these guys are doing some things right. Mark Bowman's one of the top tight ends in the country. Alabama's recruiting him. Also, Max Sutter. So two of those top 100 type guys. Tight end probably doesn't get as much love as it should early in the rankings. Everybody started to compare everybody to Brock Bowers, but there's some really good guys, and tight end's been a focus for this coaching staff. You go back to Caleb Edwards and Marshall Pritchett, who all three of us loved. When we saw him, he was bigger, a willing blocker. Really disappointed he got injured right out of the gate, but he seems to be okay. I saw him on Twitter via TikTok dancing with Keelan and AK Deer, and he moved okay. I didn't really see a sling on him. So tight end is one everybody's always excited about. So there's a couple that Alabama went to. Today, let's discuss the Alabama guys you mentioned earlier, Andrew. The Alabama offers, there's been a ton of them that they've went on, especially lately. I mean, just offered the kid from Wadley. Let's talk about him. Again, big-time athlete, small ball, but those kids tend to translate. Now, sometimes the learning curve is a little steeper because you have to adjust from being tackled by me, you, and Joseph to being tackled by Jahad Campbell and Deontay Lawson. But big time player got an offer yesterday.
Yeah, we've seen 40 offers, 40 plus offers over the course of the last 2.5 weeks. Because 7 total offers yesterday, and you mentioned tight ends a minute ago. Luke Sorensen out of Mission Viejo was also, or not Mission Viejo, another school in California, was offered by Alabama yesterday. So that's a new guy that we're talking about at the tight end position. But as far as in-state, 4 or 5 total in-state offers in the course of the last 2.5 weeks. I think it's 4, but Jaquez Wilkes out of Wadley is probably one of those guys that we expected would eventually get an offer. He's 6'4", 220 pounds, plays on both sides of the football, had over 2,500 yards rushing during his junior season, but over 100 tackles. And he's been being recruited more so as a defensive player, but has a ton of offers, and now Alabama's added to the mix. So definitely a new kid that we're going to be paying very close attention to in-state wise, and see when I don't think he's going to be visiting this weekend, but should be visiting sometime this spring.
He kind of looks like the uncle that shows up at Thanksgiving, and when the kids go in the backyard, he has to go out there and be Herschel Walker. I literally had that uncle who would be stiff-arming us in the face as he broke. That's what he looks like at the high school level. He's a monster. I mean, there was a suplex in there, a complete body slam on some of those kids, so definitely a monster. Joseph, we've seen Alabama attack, the coaching staff attack Alabama relatively quickly, the Alabama staff. First day, straight down to Mobile, hitting on some of these top guys, touching on them the second guy. Your thoughts on some of these offers and some of the, Tank, just talk about Tank Jones. Andrew mentioned him earlier, but what kind of priority he's been so far?
Yeah, you mentioned Tank Jones there in Alabama's visits earlier this month. One of the first guys that they saw went to his basketball practice, Christian Robinson, Kalen DeBoer. And, I caught up with him after that meeting with Coach Robinson, and he said that C-Rob is the one that he has the best relationship with in this process. He's done a good job not only building that connection with him, but also his family as well. Making them feel welcomed anytime that they're on campus, making them feel like a priority. And he's somebody that they went to the school of early on last year, even throughout the crazy transition, trying to finish out that 2024 class and focusing on 2025. Anthony Tank Jones, that was one of the first visits they made last year, and obviously prioritized them this month. Saw him again too later on. They've extended a few offers in state, as we mentioned. Tyson Bacon is one, that caught our attention. Obviously committed to Tennessee, out of Hoover, Alabama. Originally from Michigan, but made the move to Alabama a couple of years ago before his sophomore season. Trains at step-by-step training, which is where Jeremiah Beeman, Jalen Mbakwe trained at before, and some other guys. And he's definitely one who expressed interest in Alabama after receiving that offer. Obviously, maintained that he's committed to Tennessee, but wants to get back out to Bama sometime in the spring if he can. And we'll see if they get an official visit as well.
I mean, again, to recap, Alabama hit the first day. They could go out. They went straight to see Zion Gibson, who was committed to them. Took a host of coaches with them. Showed them a ton of love. Kalen DeBoer went in. Those other coaches went back and saw him that night on an in-home. They went straight. And this is the thing I kind of like about this staff. They're not really doing it step by step. They literally go from Gaston, home of Andrew Bone, the great and famous Andrew. They go from there straight to Mobile. Now, I know they're not riding a moped like Dumb and Dumber, but they still went through straight down there to talk to Tank. Hit Gunnar Rivers, 2027 quarterback, son of Phillip Rivers, pretty quick. And, of course, E.J. Kroll. I mean, you get this guy who at the time when they visited this 2027, I have a feeling they knew he might end up in the 2026 class. But Andrew, straight out of the gate, straight to the top targets, following it up the next day with Tank Jones and some of the, with Jabarius Gaber. Andrew, how do you say that, Joseph?
Garrett.
The last name.
Yeah, Garrett. And we call him by his nickname Chicken.
We got to call him Chicken or Steve, one or the other. Me and Andrew, like, talking on the phone, we're like, what is it? I don't know. We're going the best. But, Andrew, you've seen those guys. It wasn't just a quick start because, like we've noticed, ththese guys they're offering now, Bessemer City, Wadley, these aren't some powerhouses that you're used to seeing top prospects at. And they've also stopped by Hoover. They've stopped by Thompson High School. Not really 2026 prospect at Thompson I'm aware of, but got some good 2027s like Trent and some of the other guys.
Yeah, I think it's been kind of loud and clear. Recruit the state of Alabama, and they've gone out and they've evaluated a lot of different kids. They've extended offers. Now there's some kids that they've probably offered, maybe not in the course of the last couple of weeks, but over the last year that they might not be pursuing anymore. And there's going to be new guys that are going to emerge. I mean, we've seen 4 or 5 new offers in state over the course of the last couple of weeks. So they're going out there, they're seeing kids, they're evaluating, and they're making sure they're not jumping on every single kid, but they're extending offers to the ones that they really like early on. And we said this last year, they're probably not going to offer an in-state kid unless they're pretty confident that they are going to have a green light to commit. I just don't think they're going to do that. They didn't do it last year. They're probably not going to do it this year. So a lot of these guys that they're going after that we're seeing get offered, these are guys that they really like, and they're going to bring on campus and continue to, recruit, evaluate, and, grow a good relationship with.
Andrew, you've got a compliment, the first one ever, and you got a follow-up question. Where can he get your hat?
It's actually discontinued.
Oh my gosh!
The guys. What is it? University Traditions. They sent out the hat, but I just saw here not too long ago that they were shutting down operations. So they sent me this hat a few years ago, and certainly enjoyed it.
First time I've seen it. Kenneth Gannon.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean, it's not even the start. It's really their recruitment shouldn't even have started until the last week, this coming weekend. I mean, obviously we've been dealing with it for 3 weeks, but he's a guy that's going to be evaluated. Kenneth, don't forget what happened last year. No offer. Everybody's throw Juju a blank check. Everybody's throwing Andrew, write a blank check, but I never write one. But it was throw Juju a blank check. Deuce Knight, they did a really strong evaluation, as did Saban. Really didn't have a guy, so they went through that process. Nick Sheridan went out, searched for his guy, took his time, and the minute he found him, which was Keelan, they went full throttle, locked him up, and kept him locked up. So that process at quarterback is going to be a little different. Also in 2026, you're battling Keelan.
Yep.
You're literally got a monster on campus. These kids know who he was. He's the biggest name one of the biggest names in Texas, along with Dak Moore, I think. Elite 11 winner, all that stuff. Mr. Football. I mean, did he win Mr. Football, Joseph? I know he got Gatorade Player of the Year.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, he won Gatorade National Player of the Year. He won the Maxwell Award, and I believe Mr. Football has yet to announce it, or he's
Yeah,
on
that
track?
sounds right. Anyways, he's won just about everything he could. So they're recruiting against him. So they're look, I'll tell you one thing about this staff they're not scared of. They're not scared to fight you. They're fighting for the number one player in the next class with Jared Curtis, who is expected to be at Alabama this week and had something come up where he couldn't take any visits, but he expected to take some official visitors. So obviously, I think Keelan's going to factor in there, but they're not in a rush because, man, you want to get that quarterback position right, don't you, Joseph?
Yeah, you absolutely do. And it's obviously, even when you land somebody like a Keelan Russell a month ago, or sign him a month ago, the focus is always going to be who's in 2026. That's just the nature of the quarterback position. It's one that will always have a lot of scrutiny on it. And like you mentioned before, Alabama's going to do their evaluations. They're going to be thorough with it. They're not going to extend offers just to extend offers. And they're going to see how things go. Obviously, you got the spring evaluation period. In March, you want to see some of these guys on campus as well too. Not just see them at their school. So yeah, interested in seeing how things play out. We mentioned Curtis. There's not many other guys we're really hearing about outside of him in terms of players they've offered at the position. So yeah, it's kind of in a remains to be seen situation right now. Obviously, other position groups that are of a higher priority based on how last cycle played out compared to the quarterback position.
So let's talk about some big game hunting. We mentioned that with Jared Curtis. We're all going to pick a guy. I chose Lamar Brown because there's a lot of straight Bama can't get this guy because he's in Baton Rouge. It's a battle. It's recruiting. It's like dating a pretty girl or a handsome guy. It's a battle. You're going to have competition. I mean, obviously, Lamar Brown's one of the best in the country, one of the highest ranked guys. You're going to find 5-star, although the rankings are early. But he is right on LSU's campus. I went to visit my friend Shay Dixon, who runs our LSU site. My son went to an LSU baseball camp there, and we rode by the high school, and I was like, holy crap. Like, Dylan Moses had to walk by Coach O's office or whoever, Les Miles at the time, to say, I'm not coming to get home. He literally, it's on the LSU campus. I'd been told that, but I didn't realize. So it's a battle, but, I mean, this is a guy that's taken a couple of unofficial visits already. He's got an official visit set up for first weekend in May. Is that right? Last weekend in May, the first.
May 30th, yeah.
Okay, so he's got the visit set up. It's a battle, but I don't think people appreciate. I think they don't understand, some people, what a battle it is to keep guys unless they see it on the surface. They saw Caleb Cunningham, but do you think Caleb had any offers that Keelan Russell and Dejon Lee didn't have? Absolutely not. I mean, those guys were sought after. Big names are hunting for them too. You know how the state of Texas is. A lot of guys went after them. So Lamar Brown's going to be a battle, but you got to fight that fight. And I mean, also, you're not win or lose. You're not necessarily losing even if you don't get them. Look at Kelby Collins. Look at Damani Jackson. Look at LT Overton. We've seen you miss and then come back around to hit, and those three guys are expected to have big impact years this year. Andrew Bone, tell us about Darius Gray. We'll stick with the offensive line. This staff seems to love the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, another kid up in Maryland that Alabama seems to like early on. Coach Cap, Alabama offensive line coach, went and saw him last week, extended him an offer. And like I said, they're going out, they're evaluating a lot of kids. It doesn't matter where a kid's ranked right now. And this is a top 5 interior offensive lineman in the country. There's guys that aren't ranked right now that are probably going to end up in the top 10 overall, as an interior offensive lineman. So they're going out evaluating a lot of kids, making sure that they're going after the right guys. But this is a new guy that's on the radar for them, and the staff will be back in the DMV area on Wednesday recruiting. And one of the top names that they'll see is 5-star offensive lineman Emmanuel Ian Hacho. That's a guy that they really like up there, and we've seen them be pretty active in the DMV this year as compared to last year, and I think that's going to be an area of focus, kind of like what we've talked about with Texas and Georgia and Alabama. DMV is an area that they're going to heavily recruit. So we'll see if some of those guys get down for visits this spring.
And again, going with, they're not traveling, they're not taking the easiest path to these recruiting. Like, people do it often conveniently. Nick Saban did. But again, Alabama to California to Florida to the DMV and back to Florida. That's where they'll be on Thursday. That's the mileage they're putting under. Joseph, Tell us about the running back in Texas, the Robert Gillespie. We probably don't give him as much credit because he doesn't recruit mass guys, but man, he really digs into a few of those guys. Obviously, we saw that last year with the AK Deer, who we talked about from Mississippi. Definitely to me, he's one of the top 2 running backs in the country. But Robert Gillespie's going after another big name.
Yeah, speaking of top 2 running backs in the country, Jonathan Hatton, out of San Antonio, Texas, On3's number 2 running back in the 2026 class. Received a visit from Coach Gillespie last week. Had a conversation with him, got to talk with him a little bit about their meeting. He says he has a great relationship with Coach Gillespie. The communication is there. But the big thing for him is getting on campus. He's going to be taking a visit for the junior day this upcoming weekend. Hatton is highly coveted, highly sought after. Texas A&M is a program that seems to be trending. He was previously committed to Oklahoma, but he made it clear that he wants to take his visits. He wants to see the schools that are on his radar. Alabama's one of them. Wants to take an official visit to Bama down the line as well. So his recruitment isn't expected to be over until sometime in July. Jonathan's somebody that Alabama staff's looking for. Obviously, every time we mention another running back in the 2026 class now over the past week or so, it's been, well, would we take him with E.J. Crowell, or how does this affect E.J. Crowell's recruitment? Bama's got to recruit these guys, and play things by ear. As we always say, it's kind of a fluid situation with that, just seeing, which guys are expressing high interest levels, which ones may want to make an early decision, how things go with the evaluation process, if other offers are added. But Jonathan's definitely a name at the running back position to know in the 2026 class.
I was looking when I was sort of outlining our show, the 3 of us were talking about this. I noticed we don't really talk about 2 guys enough because we tend to focus on the ones with Kalen DeBoer, right? And some of those are locking down those seats, but we got a couple that kind of travel alone a little bit more than the others. And Christian Robinson, who's really been pounding the pavement, and Freddie Roach kind of doing his thing. I mean, they dip in and out with some of these guys. I think that Freddie Roach will be with the staff in Florida today in the Panhandle. They're visiting 2 of the top 3 state of Florida recruits. And then Christian Robinson, I mean, he could get mail shipped to Georgia, right, Andrew? I mean, he's over there a good a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And last year we really talked so many different kids that had such a close relationship with them, and we saw the relationship that he had with a guy like Justin Hill, being able to pull him out of the state of Ohio. Now, can he go into this year, maybe a little bit more so in the state of Georgia with Xavier Griffin, who's a USC commitment out of Gainesville? That's a guy that he's already seen a couple times, and definitely a top guy for him in this class, along with Kamari Brooks out of North Coney High School. Those are 2 guys in the state of Georgia, pass rushers that are on the short list of targets, and I think Brooks is actually see in Tuscaloosa this upcoming weekend.
Yep.
Yes, he's great. He's fun. Yeah, he's fun to watch too.
So it'll be interesting to see how what he's going to be able to do in this class. But Wolf position is going to be a big focus. Alabama signed 1 last year, I guess technically 2, with Cavante Henry, who could play either Bandit or Wolf. But I think high school Wolves this year, Alabama's probably going to try to sign at least 2.
Joseph, same thing. I mean, when you look at Freddie Roach, who's been kind of quiet now, there was a lot of, we need to get in the portal for the DL. We got to get in the portal for the DL. But the whole time, I think it's obvious the Alabama staff knew that Tim Keenan was coming back. Now, he played with the fans a little bit because he did have some sketchy, suspicious type Instagram behavior. I mean, it read goodbye, even though we were being told he was not leaving. I'm like, I'm just telling you, if somebody wrote me that, I think they were leaving. Obviously, they knew LT was coming back. They knew Keenan was coming back. But we see an emphasis put on the defensive line, and Freddie the Roach is leading that way in 2026.
Yeah, definitely. You look at some of the offers, and we've talked about them too with Kamarian Johnson, out of Bessemer City, Tyson Bacon, Emmanuel Ruffin out of Bessemer City, Kamarian Johnson out of Muscle Shoals, Freddie Roach's neck of the woods, Tyson Bacon. So in-state defensive linemen being offered, that's something that we've taken a look at, but also out of the state too. Elijah Golden, Jamian Winfield, a few other guys along the defensive line position in the 2026 class have been offered just this month alone. So it's pretty clear to see, the defensive line is going to be a position group of priority for the Crimson Tide. getting some of the guys on campus this weekend and also in the spring as well. So, but Freddie Roach has done a really good job of hitting the road this month. From the very first day, been out there on the road with the Tide staff and also going off on his own, like you said, meeting some of these guys in person, building the early relationship, getting to the early stages of building that relationship and making a strong impression. And Freddie Roach is a very personable guy. So that's kind of the common theme when I talk with, the players who met him. They talk about how he's got high energy, very personable, also makes a good impression on the coaches there at their schools. So, he's done a very good job this month for sure.
Yeah, it's just hard to keep up with. I mean, we've seen the head coach. He's so busy, and I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's definitely Nick Saban was a dog when it came to working. I mean, he was turning on the lights in the morning, turning out the lights at night for many years. He was hitting the recruiting trail. I mean, I think he shined the most with the Zoom calls. I mean, I don't know if we expected him to be so active when that started with during the COVID, but he was like, everybody was Zooming with Nick Saban, and then it carried off the whole year. So nobody's really outworked him. But I'll tell you what, I don't think you can sit down. I mean, I don't think you can sleep on how good Kalen DeBoer's been. Again, putting in the mileage, shaking hands, meeting. And the one thing, Andrew, I think you like to hear is it's all positive feedback. He's nice. They like to meet him. They had, all the good stuff that you want to hear.
Yeah, we heard that last year, and that was a big part of Alabama being able to sign such a great class. And even some of the parents that we spoke with who didn't sign, kids that didn't sign with Alabama, they just had glowing remarks about Coach DeBoer and the personal relationship that he was able to build with those guys. Not even talking, most of the time wouldn't even talk about football. Just wanted to get to know these guys, get to know these families, where they're from, what they like to do. One parent told me they met with them for an hour. It was their very first meeting, and they didn't talk about football the entire time that they were together. So I think he does a really good job out there on the road. As far as developing relationships with kids, but it's also these coaches that are out there with them. Whether it's Courtney Morgan, Christian Robinson, Coach Cap. I mean, it's an entire staff and an entire support staff that kind of knows how to recruit, how to develop relationships, and they get down to it. What's important in a player's recruitment? Is it NIL? Is it something else? They're going to find out pretty quickly what that is and move forward.
Joseph, give us a quick final thought. We'll consider that Andrew's final thought because it was a good one. I don't want him to ruin his moment. I'm saving Andrew from Andrew.
Appreciate it.
That was a good. Hey, that was a good. I was actually going to come to that. You nailed it before I asked. Joseph, give us one final thought.
Yeah, big weekend coming up. February 1st, Junior Day. Getting a lot of top guys in town, in state, out of state, as we talked about. And it's big for more than just that. You've got the dead period coming up right after a months-long dead period. So, Alabama's going to be that last impression, so to speak, before 4 weeks to, kind of sit on it, not take visits, and then hopefully try and get them on campus again in the spring for an unofficial or then line up an official visit. Like you mentioned, Tim, with Lamar Brown scheduling that official for May 30th, I think you'll start to see that a little bit more. So that's going to be interesting to see, who gets in town for official, who sets those up. But yeah, that's my final thought. Big recruiting weekend ahead for this Tide staff, and they did a pretty good job last year with limited time. So in this cycle, being a full year in, expect even better results this time around.
Yeah, I think my final thought is this step.
Better results. Better than number two.
You're running your final thought.
Better than the number two.
General. It's a general statement.
Call on you if it's not number one.
Okay, I was about to say you ruined your final thoughts, but if y'all are going to argue, I'm going to sit back and leave this show live. Go ahead.
Better results for the Junior Day in terms of making a strong impression, getting some guys lined up for official visits. That's what I mean. Not number one. I'm not guaranteeing a number one class.
Y'all see what I deal with? I've got not 4 kids, but 6. These are my oldest 2 right here.
You definitely like an old man.
Hey, my final thought is, hey, I'm holding up well. You are fading right now. You're falling inches by inches. My final thought is, they can recruit. I mean, we were fed a load of lies, almost wishful thinking, but you don't put this much effort into recruiting and not know how to recruit. We've seen coaches that failed recruiting. We've seen them not put a lot of effort. This is not what it looks like. I mean, again, literally crisscrossing. We didn't even get into Ohio, where they're up there chasing Sincere Johnson, another Ohio State guy. They fight the big fights. And right now it's kind of like the jab portion of a fight. You see if you got a chance, can sustain their big, their big haymaker. And if you can, you keep swinging. That's what they did with Justice Hills. But also there's a point where you pull out of that race when it gets, where you're uncomfortable. I mean, that happened with Josiah Sharma. It happened with Ty Haywood. When it gets to where you're uncomfortable, you pass that. It just saves you a lot of time and a lot of trouble. And it's not, against any of the kids or any of that stuff, because it's just a business at this point in a lot of ways. And also Nick Saban would do this. Nick Saban wasn't wasting a lot of time. I mean, if he thought he couldn't get to a kid, he would just, walk away. Why are you wasting our time? But anyways, we appreciate everybody who turned up, tuned in. And if you get a chance, check us out on BamaOnLine.com. A lot of great content already starting this morning. We got more coming this afternoon. Visits throughout this weekend, a huge visitor weekend. Also, if you get a chance, give us a like and subscribe on the show. Helps us keep this thing going. We have a good time. We're going to try to do these more frequent. And it's been a little bit quiet, since the portal closed. The Peter Woods, Pee Woo. Since that moment, the grub still pops up every now and then. So we still got stuff to discuss, but we appreciate y'all tuning in. Andrew Bone, tell your people adios.
Yeah, thanks for following us. And like Tim said, go to BamaOnLine.com. You can talk to us every single day, pretty much every hour on the day on the BOL Roundtable, our premium message board. So go check us out over there. And not, we'll see you on here later on.
Joseph Hastings, get us out of here.
Thank you all for tuning in. Greatly appreciate the comments, the activities there. We see it. You ain't first, you're last. Ricky Bobby, love it. And yeah, thank you all for tuning in. I think Bone has a 11 a.m. movie to catch with that outfit he's wearing. So,
well, he's got a nap at 11. He's got a movie at noon. So,
yeah, that's what I do.
It's actually more like Joseph's schedule, if we're being honest. We appreciate you guys and gals. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.